Welcome to 131XR, and today we're talking about Gun Shooter Defense World War One. That's a name that's a bit of a mouthful, and the game itself? Well, it's an interesting take on the topic. Gun Shooter Defense World War One, to be fair, is an early access game. It's priced at just £3.99 and has recently launched on the MetaQuest store. With those caveats, you might know what we're getting into here. The game is an arena-based wave shooter. You do have some options to move around the arena, but it's very limited. There are in fact only two maps in the game at this point. One in which you're standing next to a beach as waves of enemies come over the horizon into your field, and you must take them out before they reach you. The second of which is when you're on a boat out at sea, and your ship circles another ship, and you must shoot off the enemies that are on that ship. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple, and very, very basic. As you're standing in these arenas and taking on the waves of enemies, you will have a group of teammates with you. And you would hope there is some kind of level of camaraderie, some heightened immersion by having these other figures around you. But sadly, there is about 4, maybe 5 lines of dialogue that they utter very rarely when you make a good shot or when one of your teammates does get taken out, and they really have very little impact on the game. At the end of each level, there is a statistics screen that appears that shows your kill ratio. Now, I've come to assume that that is how many of the enemies you killed and how many your teammates killed, delivered as a percentage. However, I can't be sure, because the game doesn't actually have any of this information. It never actually tells you what is coming, what anything means. You're just put in this field, given your guns, and off you go, shoot the bad guys. And when I say given your guns, I mean you're given 2 guns, 2 pistols, 2 revolver pistols, and that's all the weaponry there is in this game. Now again, this is an early access title, so hopes would be that more guns and more armaments and more levels and more enemies and so on are going to come at a later stage. But right now at this point, this is all you've got. 2 pistols that you reload manually. Yeah, when you're putting the bullets back in, they are kind of stuck to your other gun. So it's a case of shuffling your 2 guns together in order to reload each weapon. It's a bit odd, but it does work. Now, in terms of the enemy AI, it is poor. The enemies will come to a certain point and then kneel down and begin their shooting. Now, this is World War One, so it's not like they've got huge automatic weapons or anything. It's rifle-based, even though you have pistols. Now, while they're kneeling down, they're pretty easy to take out before you get hit. Eventually, some of them may stand up and start running towards you, just making them bigger targets as they will not fire while they're running. Makes it pretty simple to choose your priorities on what to take out at which point. As you progress through the levels, the maps will simply repeat themselves. You go from your green field adjacent to a beach, to the boat, to the green field adjacent to the beach, to the boat, to the green field adjacent, and so on. And to say it becomes annoying is to put it mildly. The only thing the game does in order to change things up from your single weapon option on your 2 available maps is to increase the difficulty. And that's not a case of changing up the formula at all. It's simply making the enemies more aggressive and their bullets do more damage. The options you've got for taking cover and hiding and running around, to distract the enemy, are basically non-existent. There is some movement available in the level where you're stood next to the beach, but it is very limited by invisible walls. On the boat, it is frankly horrendous. You have a small box, which again for some reason is limited by invisible walls, despite the fact there is clearly several feet in front of you towards the edge of the boat. Having invisible walls in a medium that's all about immersion kind of ruins the effect for me. So the level design and the AI design do definitely need some work here. The fact that you only have 1 gun option for the whole game definitely needs some work here. Despite the fact that the game is in early access and is priced at just £3.99, it's incredibly difficult to recommend this to anybody. There are wave shooters in VR that are significantly better in all areas than Gun Shooter Defense World War One that have been available for almost a decade at this point. And while some of them may be a little bit more expensive, the older games certainly you can get at a discounted price now. So while £3.99 or your local currency equivalent may seem like a good deal, do some exploring around the store. Just because a game is 2, 3, 4 years old doesn't mean it's a bad game. And it's certainly not difficult to be more comprehensive and more varied than Gun Shooter Defense World War One. Gun Shooter Defense World War One is available for MetaQuest headsets now, priced at £3.99 or your local currency equivalent. And despite the fact the game is in early access, it needs a lot of work before we could recommend this game to anyone. As far as 131XR is concerned, we played this game so you don't have to.